Welcome back, folks. So let's do some database administration work. But first thing first, I must admit that I feel embarrassed whenever I log into MySQL. I know I did a lot of fat fingered while I was so slow entering the root password. So let's assign Bob this task to store these root credentials in an encrypted way so root doesn't have to supply password each time it connects to MySQL. As you have learned from one of the previous lessons, that MySQL shipped with a utility called MySQL editor. It configures the authentication information in a hidden file of the current user's home directory. The hidden file name is .mylogin.cf. So when we invoke a client program like MySQL to connect to the server, client actually uses this file to read the credentials. And by default, client reads the client and MySQL groups from other option file, as well as the file that we have. This is called the login path file. Here's the line. It is very important to understand that why I have used here the login path is client. I said that these are the option groups. Login path, this login path is option group that specify which MySQL to connect and which account to authorized. So this is the example of .mylogin.conf file with two option groups. One is called client, another is called prod. With the prod has a different host to connect with a different user to authenticate. This password, since this file is an encrypted file, we are not able to read this file. I'm just showing you here as an example. So Bob is going to use this program to save root's user credential. So let's see Bob in action. So Bob, the junior DBA, got this assignment that he needs to configure MySQL account to save the credentials in an encrypted format so user can log into MySQL without password, without prompting the password, because the password is already saved in an encrypted hidden file called .mylogin.cnf. Bob is going to use MySQL config editor, and it is going to set the login path to client, user to root, and dash password so that it can be prompted for the password and then it will be saved. The point here I want to make is right here in this assignment, we are doing this config editor for root user. You can have any user, and you can even have that host, any host. So this MySQL config editor is going to save the credentials for any user to any MySQL host. So let's see Bob in action. So Bob has logged into the MySQL server. The first thing he will do is he will get the help for MySQL config editor command. As you can see in the help, Bob can set the username password. It can remove the configuration. It can print the configuration, and it can reset. The difference between reset and remove is remove will actually totally remove the login file. Reset will leave the file there, but it will only delete its contents. So let's see if Bob can get help on set. What he needs to provide username and the password and the login path. So Bob is going to do set dash user for root dash password, and then he needs to do dash login dash path is equal to client. Client is the by default anyway, so we are just giving it. So the password for root. Perfect. So now let's see if this config editor has been set. So we can use this command dash print. Perfect. So we can see that the password is hidden, is encrypted for the user, and the group option is client. So let's see if Bob is able to connect to MySQL server without using the password. So simple. So we are not giving dash use user or dash root, simple MySQL, and Bob is there. We can test it is Bob, select user, and that is root @ localhost. So please complete this assignment of your own, because every other assignment that are coming, it will be based on that we have already configured. So for example, if we will use MySQL admin, we will not give the credentials on the prompt. We will assume that this has been already taken care of. So I will see you in the next lesson. Can ping if MySQL server is running or not. We can start the replication on a replica. We can stop the replication on a replica. We can check how many threads or how many connections are being connected to MySQL server. The syntax is pretty straightforward. MySQL admin, options, and then a command. Options here mean providing the username and the password. But like in the previous lesson, we have already used MySQL config editor to use this password file. So we will not give these options. We can simply say MySQL admin and then the command, and then the credentials, the authentications will already been taken care of. Some of the examples of MySQL admin is MySQL admin status, MySQL admin ping, create database, drop database. Bob is given another assignment. He is given the assignment to create a database and name it employees. So Bob is going to utilize this MySQL admin utility. Simply will say MySQL admin create and then give the database name. So let's see Bob in action. Welcome back. So Bob has logged into the MySQL server database host. as usual, Bob is going to get the help on MySQL admin. And I would highly recommend you, whenever you use any MySQL provided program, please use help first. It gives you a lot of hint and instructions how to use this tool. So MySQL admin -- help. As you can see, through this tool, we can perform many administrative operations. So for example, MySQL admin, get the version of MySQL server. Let's get the status, if MySQL is up or not. Let's see if MySQL is running, and that is, I believe, ping. MySQL is alive. This is a very quick way of checking. Someone come to you at the DBA, say, hey, is this something wrong with the MySQL server? You simply type MySQL admin ping and say, no, MySQL server is running. And now we can say MySQL admin create, and we are given the database name is employees. So MySQL admin create employees database should be created. Let's check that. Show databases. Perfect. MySQL admin has created a database name employees. So please explore this MySQL admin utility, perform a couple of actions so you will get more familiar with this utility. I'll see you in the next lesson. The .SQL file could have contains the SQL statements to create a new database, maybe a new user, a new table, and so on. But the main point here is the .SQL file should only contains the SQL statements that would execute in MySQL shell. There are mainly 4 ways we can execute them. From within a MySQL shell, if you have already logged into the MySQL, you simply use MySQL shell command, source or its shortcut \dot followed by the file name. The second method is by running MySQL client program and accepting the .SQL file as input. The syntax is MySQL -- host is equal to the host name, optionally user, and the password. And also you provide the database name where this file should come, followed by a file input sign and then file name. The third method is by creating a shell script, make it executable, and run it from command line. The shell script will invoke MySQL client and execute any .SQL file that is being provided as an argument. And all the arguments are denoted by a $sign with a positional number. Here, the 1 mean the first argument or parameter. The fourth one is by a pipe method. You cat the .SQL file as you cat any other regular Unix file to see the content of it. Then use the pipe operator, which takes the content of this file and feed it into the MySQL client program. The content is obviously SQL statements in a sequential order as they appear in the .SQL file. So MySQL client accept them and execute them. So there could be other methods to execute .SQL files into MySQL server, but I think if you can stick with all these 4, you don't need to look any further. So here comes Bob's next assignment. Bob needs to execute employees.sql file. That file will create a staff table in the employees database. Remember that employees database was created by MySQL admin tool in the previous lesson. Bob will go through in each of these methods and it will apply this employees.sql file there. So let's see Bob in action. Welcome back. So Bob has logged in to the database server ls, and here is the employees.sql file. Let's see what is actually in there. Cat. So the file says these are all the SQL statements. The very first statement is use employees database. In this database, go ahead and create a table if it does not exist before. Name it staff, and the first column it should be ID, which is of type integer. This ID should not take any null value, and it should auto increment mean 1, 2, 3, 4. And this should be the primary key of this table. Then create a column called fname, which is equivalent to the file name. The data type for this is variable of characters up to 255, and the first name should not be empty. Similar, the last name with the same data type and with 255 length should also not contain any null values. Title of this person, of this staff, it is of varchar data type. Maximum length is 50, and it can contains null values. Then the last column is active. Is this the staff member in the employees database? Is this active? Either it can have a value y, which means yes, it is active, or n, which is not active, and this is only a 1 character, and that is the reason it is defined as char character of length 1. So let's clear the screen, go inside the MySQL. Let's see if employees, let's see if we have any table there, show tables, nothing there. So let's say source employees, employees.sql, database changed, mean use employees, and then query. Okay, let's see if we are able to see the staff table is there. So this is the method 1. Let me drop this table, drop table staff. So we have no tables. Okay, so exit out from here, ls. We do have the second method is do MySQL host is equal to local host. Input file, give the file name. Okay, let's try to log back in, use employees, show tables. The table should be there. Let me drop the table again. This was the second method, comes out of this. Now let's create a shell script, call this employees.sh, employees.sh. Let's put the MySQL shell command there. It will be MySQL -- host is equal to local host, and then it should accept the first argument. Okay, so let me come out of there, change its permission for the user to execute employees.sh. Let's see that right there. So this green main, this is the executable script. So let's say bash employees.sh, and let's give this file as an argument. Hit enter. Let's try to log into MySQL, use the employees database, show tables, and the tables stuff should be there. Okay, so let me drop one last time. This was the third method, drop table stuff, exit out of here. Right there, the fourth method is the pipe method. In the pipe method is do cat employees.sql and pipe into MySQL client program. I could say -- host is equal to local host. If by default, since I am not giving, if I will not give host, it will take it that I meant local host. Let me try that. MySQL. Okay, let's see that. Login back MySQL, use employees database, show tables, and staff table is there. Let me see if there is anything there. Select star from staff, should not be there because this is the assignment for Bob in the next lesson. And I will see you in the next lesson. Thank you very much. Welcome back. So far, we have learned that if we have SQL statements to execute, we can put them either in .sql file and then feed this .sql file into MySQL client program to execute it. Or we can create an executable shell script to perform the same action. What if we don't want to save these SQL statements into a file first? Is there a way to execute SQL statements without even first opening the MySQL client shell? Or in other words, executing these SQL statements from the terminal? The answer is yes, with the option -- execute or -e as a short form. So Bob got this assignment. He has a SQL statement, actually one or more SQL commands, and he wants to execute them from the terminal. He doesn't want to always log into MySQL shell first and then run it. So this MySQL client program give you an option. You can run any SQL command from the terminal. You don't need to log in first. So here I am just giving MySQL -e option. I am not providing -- host, -- user, and -- password because I already used this MySQL config editor. All those credentials have been saved. So let me show you quickly both ways how we can perform this action where we will execute a SQL command from the terminal. So here I have already logged into a database host. So I can first log in as MySQL because I already saved this credential for the credentials. So now what I will do is I will simply say MySQL and then I'll say -e, or I can use -- execute is equal to double quotes. Let's put some SQL command. I want to run, let's say host name, and I want to do version. Okay, close this quotes. And right there, we did not log into MySQL shell first. At the terminal, we use MySQL client and then use this execute option to run a command. We can actually do multiple commands at the same time with a semicolon as a terminator. I can do another, I'll say select, let's say select, I would say user host from mysql.user. Right there. So any command you separate with a semicolon, you can have as many SQL commands as you want. So right there, without logging into it, we use the MySQL client and we ran multiple commands. Another way I would do is I will log out of this database host. Now this is my own Mac terminal, my client. I can do the other way. MySQL, let's say the host is this IP address, user is Bob, and this is the password. I will enter when it will prompt me, and then I will say -e with a short form. I will say select, let's say again host name. Let's say now, what is time right now? Okay, and semicolon. You can use semicolon here or you don't. If you have any other command here, you can put. Either way, both will work. So let me try to see if it works. right there. So I actually am logging remotely as a Bob user from my own workstation, and I can run these commands. I don't need to actually first log into the database host or start the MySQL shell. Then from within there, I can do, or I can source a .SQL. You can actually use -e option with any SQL command. So I hope this demo has been very informative for you, and I will see you in the next lesson. Welcome back. So we have created a database, created a table within that database. Now it is time to populate this table with some data. MySQL import is a data import program which takes a text file as an input and load its data into the table. Syntax is right there, MySQL import, and we have options, then the database name, and then the first file name.txt. Optionally, we can have multiple files in there, but the file name and the database name is required. Couple of things to note here. Number one, the file should be tab delimited, and the file has the same name as the table name that we want to populate. As you can see here, nowhere here we are giving the name of the table in which we want to populate the data. So whatever the file name will be, that should be the table name that will be populated in this database. So along the way of using this program, we will encounter some errors, and I intentionally left them there. I didn't want to fix them. I wanted to fix with you, and I want you to experience those and learn from those errors while you fix them. To give you a hint, this program will not just allow you to import data from a file resided anywhere. It is controlled by a system variable called secure file priv. And this variable is denoted a directory. It defines a path where the incoming file should reside. Another error you will see is about the column mismatch. So we will seek this utility's help to fix it. So Bob got this assignment that he needs to load the data from the staff.txt file. This file has no syntax error. It is already populated with some sample data. It is a .txt. It is a tab delimited file. It has the same name as of the table that we want to use. So Bob is only required to populate the staff table in the employees database with the data that is in this file. So what Bob is going to use the steps, Bob will use the MySQL import utility. Bob will fetch the secure file privileges value. Bob will copy that file to that desired location and will change the permissions. And then Bob is going to load the data with the utility MySQL import with the syntax options. We will use these options and we move along. And then the database name, and then wherever the path of this variable defined /staff.txt. So let's see Bob in action. Welcome back. So Bob has logged into the database system. Let's see if the file is there. File is there, staff.txt. Copy this. Let's see the content of this file. File is having a .txt extension. It is a tab delimited file. It has 4 rows. It has a first name, last name, title, and then if this staff member is active or not. Okay, so let's clear it out. Let's log into MySQL and see if staff table is there and if there are any existing row there. Perfect. So let's get out of here. Try to import this file, MySQL import, database name, and the file name. MySQL import error 1290. The MySQL server is running with the secure priv file priv option, so it cannot execute the statement. What this means is that this program is actually controlled by this variable. So let's see what path this variable defines. So copy. Let me log back in. Show variables like, and I believe the variables have underscore, not the /dashes. So as you can see, this variable defines the path where the input file should be. So let us copy this. Come out of here. Actually, we don't need to come out of here. Remember, we can run any operating system command within the MySQL, and that will be \! and then move. We want to move the staff.txt into this path, right? So we are moving from there to this path. Fail to access, permission denied. So we need to actually use sudo privileges. So let's say sudo. Perfect. The file has been moved. Let's try to, let me get out of here and do this way quickly. So let's do sudo ls -ltr var lib MySQL files. As you can see, file is there and it has the proper permission, MySQL. If this file is owned by any other user, we need to change the permission of that. So now let's go back and say MySQL import. Again, employees database. Give the full path of the file location. This is very important. Staff.txt. looks good. MySQL import, database name, and the location. Enter. It says that error 1366, incorrect integer value, John for column ID. If you remember, let me show you. I intentionally left these errors so we can learn along while we are fixing it. So employees, describe the table call staff. Remember, we had a primary key column name on column name ID. It does not allow null values. It is a primary key and it is auto incremental. Mean what this means? As the records are inserted in this table, this value will be increased like 1, 2, 3, 4. So what is happening here is that the very first line here, the very first line is showing the name, and this utility is taking this as this is the first field. So what we need to do is that we need to find out that if we can specify a specific fields, we want to skip that ID because it is an auto incremental field. So let's say MySQL import dash help. Let me clear the screen, dash help. So let's see if there is an option if we can put the column names there. So we can skip that ID value. So columns right there. Use only these columns to import the data to. So what we need to do is we need to provide the columns that we really want to import into. So again, the same command. Before that, we can say dash columns is equal to, we want to import the first name, the last name, and then the title then is active, right? Also, if you notice there, it says that, I just saw this right there, delete option. First delete all the rows from the table. So what happened when we saw this error or any other error, maybe out of 1000 rows only 10 are imported. So I think it is a wise and it is a recommended way. We need to delete everything before we populate this data. So let me give this option delete, copy this, and let me, before I do this, let me do Control V here. So here we are saying that import into these fields, delete everything whatever is in there in the table. This is the database and this is the file. So let's see if that will do it. Employees.staff, that is the database name, table name, records are 4, 0 deleted there because the table was empty, no row was skipped, and there are no warnings. Perfect. Let's go back to the employees. Let's see if data has been imported. Perfect. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4 auto incremental, John, Johnny, Tom, Tommy, and then these are the titles, and this is the active field. So Bob has successfully import data into a database table from out input file, and that was actually the assignment of the Bob. So Bob has done its job. So we will see you in the next lesson. Welcome back. So Bob has created a database, created a table, populated that table with the data. Everything looks good. But what is the guarantee that the data that was loaded from an external file in the table, it is as good to the database engine as it looks like to us? So this is exactly where the mysqlcheck utility comes in place. mysqlcheck program is a table maintenance program. It checks, repairs, optimize, and optionally analyze the tables if everything is okay. If it finds any problem with the data within that table, it tends to repair that data, and it takes table name as an input. One very important point to note here is that the table that is being checked by a mysqlcheck utility, it will be locked while mysqlcheck is running operation on it. What this lock means is that you cannot perform any other database operations on this table. So please, as a DBA, make sure that first check the number of rows and the size of the table before you run this mysqlcheck command on it, and do it in a maintenance window. For the small tables, no problem. We can do this online during the day, but for the critical production tables, you need to specify a maintenance window and let the folks know ahead of time that we are performing a mysqlcheck. We are performing a maintenance on the table. The syntax is pretty straightforward like any other MySQL program. mysqlcheck, options, database name, and the table name. So Bob got this new assignment that he needs to check the integrity of the staff table that we just populated. Bob is going to use this mysqlcheck utility, and then Bob is going to run the mysqlcheck employees database name and will give the table name staff. So let's see how Bob will do this. Welcome back. So this should be a quick one. Bob has already logged into the MySQL host server. The first thing Bob does, as usual, check the help on the program that he stands to run. mysqlcheck help. Please go through this help and see in details, and also check if there are some examples of this. mysqlcheck, options, database name, and the table. So very simply, this should be a straightforward mysqlcheck, database name, employees, table name, staff, and this utility will go through each row and check the integrity of the data. Since this table is small, it quickly resulted back that employees.staff table looks okay. So that is a quick assignment that Bob has completed. We will see Bob in action in the next lesson. Welcome back. From time to time, it is very common for a DBA to get requests like we need to know how many tables are in a particular database, what are the columns in a specific table, what are the data types of those columns. So DBA has access to a very handy program called MySQL Show. MySQL Show displays the information about a specific database, list of all the tables in a database, information on a table, how many columns are there, and if a column is defined as a null or not null, if it is a primary key or not, and other useful information. This utility takes database name and optionally table name and the column name as an input. The syntax is pretty straightforward. MySQL show, options, database name, table name, or column name. Bob got this new assignment. He needs to print out the information on a staff table. First, he needs to find out how many tables are an employee's database, and then he needs to print out the information on a staff table. Bob is going to utilize this MySQL Show program utility, and it is going to perform this assignment. So let's see Bob in action. Welcome back. So Bob has logged into the database host. First thing first, Bob needs to check the help on the program that he tends to run. MySQL Show in this case. Almost similar program like any other MySQL provided program. The syntax is MySQL Show, options, database name, table name, and optionally the column name. So Bob will run MySQL Show. First, check how many tables are there in a database employees, MySQL Show employees, list of all the tables in this database, what the table staff looks like, all this detailed information, each and every field of this table, what is the data type of each field, what is the default correlation, if the column, if the field accept null value or not, if there is any constraint defined on it, like an ID has a primary key defined on it, what are the extra attributes of this column, it is an auto incremental column, what are the privileges required to work on this field, and if there are any comments on this field. So instead of doing this thing, let me go further detail next step and check the MySQL Show on a specific field. I can say, give me the information on a specific field called ID, and this will actually pop out actually from all this information to only the first row. So this utility is very handy, especially for DBAs when a staff from other departments, since they do not have access to the full permissions. So they come to the DBA and then say that, could you please print out a report on a specific database, on a specific table, and what their fields look like. So Bob has completed this assignment. So Bob is ready for the next assignment. We'll see Bob in action in the next lesson. Welcome back. There are many applications that deal with the time zones data. Hence, these apps request their backend database, in this case MySQL, to provide different time zones data. MySQL ships with a program dedicated to this specific task, and this program is called mysql_tzinfo_2_SQL. These programs load the time zones data from zone info database into system MySQL database. Zone info database is actually zone files on the operating system that describe collectively the time zones. Typical location on a Linux is /user share zone info. This is the directory. Under this directory, there are all the time zone files. And in the system MySQL database, these 5 tables are actually related to time zones database data. So these are time zone name, time zone transition type, and time zone leap second. The syntax to load this time zone data is this utility, mysql_tzinfo_2SQL, and then you provide the zone info database, in this case, this directory path, and then pipe into MySQL, then the option means username, password, and then the database name. So Bob got this assignment that he needs to load the time zone data into MySQL. Bob is going to use this mysql_tzinfo_2SQL utility. He is going to use this syntax, mysql_tzinfo_SQL, the path of the zone info database, pipe into MySQL, and the database name to MySQL. Here we are skipping the --user --password because in the previous lesson we have already configured this. So let's see how Bob does this. Welcome back. So Bob has logged in onto the MySQL database host. The first thing he needs to check that if the zone info database, that path exists on this Linux system. So ls user share, and right there zone info, let's say copy /v, and you can see that all these files related to time zone data, they are all here. So once Bob has confirmed that this directory path exists, he is going to run that utility, which is MySQL tz info to _ SQL path to the zone info database, and then it is going to pipe through MySQL client program, and we are skipping the -- user and password, and we are saying that load the data into MySQL database. So it is going through, it is skipping some of the files, tab Z. These are unnecessary in this case. So it seems like we did not see any other error. So let's go log into MySQL, use MySQL show tables, and these are all the tables related to time zone. Let's see if those tables have been populated. I'll say select count start from, let's do time zone. 1786 rows has been populated. How about time zone name? And how about time zone transition? transition. Wow. So all this data has been populated. Let's select a couple of rows and see what the data look like. Select star from time zone name. Let me do only limit to 5 time zones, and you can see these are sorted in an alphabetical order, and these are all the time zone data. So that completes Bob's this assignment. He has successfully loaded the time zone data. I'll see you in the next lesson. Welcome back. Sometimes DBAs need to test different database operations like backup and recovery, testing a new index, or simply running a SQL queries or deleting some data and so on. They don't want to risk running these operations on a live database. And it is sometimes time consuming to create and populate tables with the sample data. MySQL provides some free example databases that we can download them and use them. And some of those example databases are employees, world, Sequila. And this is the URL information if you want to see more databases. So there are a couple of more others, and this is the link. So Bob is given this assignment that he needs to download a world example database. So Bob is going to download first the world-db.zip file. He is going to unzip this zip file and then execute world.sql that is within this folder with the MySQL client. So at the end, Bob should see the world database, and he can also explore the data inside this database. So let's see how Bob does this. Welcome back. So Bob has logged into the MySQL database host. The first thing he needs to do he needs to download that world.db zip file. So he's going to use the wget utility. Let's see if the file has been downloaded. Right there. Bob needs to unzip this file. Unzip. Okay. So there is a folder world.db. He needs to go to in that folder, clear, and there's only one file. Bob will run the MySQL client program and feed that world.sql into this. Okay, seems like it worked. So let's try to see MySQL show databases, and right there is the world database. So use world show tables. As you can see, there are 3 tables, and let's see if the data has been also select star from, let's do country. Let me pull only the first 5 rows, and right there, as you can see that the sample data, the example data has been populated. So Bob has successfully downloaded an example database, and now he can freely play with this data. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next lesson. Welcome back. Let me introduce you to a very important MySQL program called mysqlbinlog. This is the utility for processing binary log files. Any changes in the database is recorded in a server file called binary log file. All these changes in the database are saved as events in the binary log file. Server writes these binary log files in a binary format, hence their format is encrypted. We cannot view them. In order to display their content in a plain text format, we use this utility. We can first check all the binary log files that exist on the system by running the command show binary logs. we can also run this command show binlog events in a specific binary log file to see or to view all the events in that particular binary log file. We can also run this MySQL binlog utility, and we provide one of the binary log file or more than one binary log file to have the result in a simple plain text format. So Bob got this assignment that he needs to investigate when employees database was dropped. So what we will do is we will drop the employees database, and then we should expect that this will cause an event in the binary log file. We will take the binary log file and pipe it into the MySQL binlog. The result should be a plain text file, and then we can simply search for a drop statement from that simple text log file. So let's see all this in action. Welcome back. So we have logged into the MySQL. Let's see first all the databases. Show databases. We can see the employees database. Let's try to drop this. Drop database employees. Show databases to confirm employees database is gone. So let's see how many binary log files are there in the system. Show binary logs. So as you can see, we have 5 binary logs, and the last one should be the latest one. We believe this drop statement should be in this binary log. So what we should do is we come out of here, we say sudo mysql binlog, and then provide the path var lib mysql, and then this file, Control C, Control V, and let's send this to a events.log file. MySQL this, okay, ls, right there. Let's copy this name, copy, let me clear, let me do grep -i drop, and I will paste the events.log right there. As you can see, drop database employees was found in this log. Let me try to see if I can do, give me 4 lines before and 5 lines after, right there. So you can see that this is the format, how MySQL record these events in the files like that. So right there was the drop database price command, and then end of log file. So Bob has successfully investigated that in one of the binary log file, the database was dropped. I will see you in the next lesson. So we are at the end of this section. It is that time again to ask Bob, how is he progressing with his DBA knowledge? At the end of this section, Bob told us no, he can save the MySQL Server authentication credentials in an encrypted file called .mylogin.cnf by using the utility called MySQL config editor. He can also create a drop database by using MySQL admin utility. He can check on how many threads or connections are connected to MySQL. He can also see if a MySQL server is alive by using the same MySQL admin utility. He can execute any .SQL file. He can import data into MySQL server using MySQL import utility. He can also check the integrity of a database tables by Mysqlcheck utility. He can also load the Timezone data by using the MySQL TZ info to SQL program. He can also download example databases and play around with their data. He can also read the binary logs into a simple text format that is actually done by a MySQL binlog utility. We know that binary logs capture all the events that are actually the database changes. So I think Bob is picking up the pace nicely. Let's push Bob to the next level.